There's three things that matters in the galaxy: family, duty, and hearth. Every kin lives by this code, and anyone who gets in the way, well, they can die just as easily.
Spoken by Karl Anok of the Starbreaker Kindred. In the blazing heart of the galactic core, where stars are crushed by gravity and the void itself is thick with radiation and riches floating from rock and stone, a people have endured for millennia. They are the kin of the Leagues of Votann. Clone-born and hardened by the void, yet driven by an unyielding code of family, duty, and hearth. To outsiders, they are ruthless miners, stubborn traders, and terrifyingly efficient warriors. But to themselves, they are simply kin, guided by an ancient machine mind of the ancestor cores, and seeing themselves as the rightful heirs of the galactic core. The Leagues of Votann shows no cracks in their exterior, and observers will think that this race is truly united in purpose and spirit, but the kin are no single monolithic empire. They are a vast confederation of leagues, each one consisting of powerful alliances, thousands of oaths, ancient traditions, and the cold calculus that without each other they will die alone in the vacuum of space. Some of these are vast mercantile powerhouses, while others are militant hegemonies forged in endless war against orcs, man, and all the Xenos that spans the stars. All of them are secretive, isolationist, and bear the scars of catastrophe and conflict, but all of them share the same blood and in times of trouble will stand together for heart, home, and kin. Exact data millennia are not given for when the kin decided to divide themselves in this manner, as history from this era blurs into myth and much of the detail is buried in the overloaded ancestor cores. What is clear is that the major ones are the most ancient and a part of the founding of their way of life, such as the Greater Thurian League. One of the original founding leagues, and by far the largest, has come to be the defining way of how many races viewed the Votann. They are mercantile, pragmatic, and expansionistic. These coincidentally are in fact the core values amongst the kin, and this combined with their predisposition makes the Thurian League the most singular influential one through their venerated history. They are a pillar of their founding, and also they are a physical pillar of the entire structure because of the vast amounts of resources that they possess. Even other leagues looked to these kin as a model of what it means to be an exemplar of their old truths and their veneration of the ancestors. Being a part of the Thurians is being part of a vast military and merchant industrial powerhouse. They constantly attract smaller and lesser groupings of younger kin called guilds or kindreds, and as such they have ranks upon ranks of warriors and ships at the ready at all times. They are frequently deployed on aggressive diplomatic missions as guardians for mega ferries or against outright enemies that would threaten their way of life. Members culturally lean heavy into trading, prospecting, and mercenary work to honor the ancestors, and recruits are trained to become skilled fighters and ruthless expansionists who approach war and everything else for that matter with a grim, methodical pragmatism, efficiently coordinated to achieve goals with minimum waste. As the Votann would say, waste fuels the void. Many lesser guilds have found incredibly prosperity underneath the umbrella of the Thurian League, and several have become huge entities on their own, such as the Ingvari Combined Logistics, the Star Striders Mercantile Confederation, and famously the Chthonian Mining Guild. Famed for incredibly driven and fearless miners in the case of locating, securing, and harvesting resources for their race, the Chthonians thinks nothing of braving extreme environments such as the pure void of space or the innards of toxic asteroids, all in the hunt for rock, stone, and treasure. Space hulks are not seen as portents of dooms or or the reminder of failure, but as an ore of precious materials. Xenar's hives are nothing but exotic hunting grounds, and abandoned stations are something that they're in a rush to explore. This bloody-minded approach is to such an extent that the lesser groupings within the guild even regard the stockpiles of other races to be nothing more than a challenge and a logistical problem to be solved. In such cases, things such as trading and diplomacy may be attempted, but one must understand that the kin trade is as much as a weapon as a beam rifle is. The plasma cutter sang in his hands, with its high and steady whine that cut through the grinding rock around him. Charon braced his boots against the tunnel floor, allowing himself to feel and read the vibration through the floor of the cavern. He pushed the beam deeper into the face of the wall. The air stank of ozone and cooked stone, and sparks sprayed across his reinforced apron. The shift would end when the quota was met, the rock gave out, or his body would, whichever came first. This was the way of it. Always had been. Always will be. Charon's arms were more machine than flesh at this point. The original bones long since replaced by denser alloys after his third cave-in 2 decades back. His left eye was a simple augmetic that saw heat and stress fractures that natural eyes could not. None of it felt like a loss. It felt like tools well used. The ancestors had given the kin strong bodies. The guild simply made them stronger for the work that mattered. One of the younger kin, Hef, only 3 cycles out of the crucible, watched from the rear, waiting for the all clear to move up with the bracing crew. The lad's face was still mostly flesh, still eager in a way that would harden soon enough. Charon killed the cutter and stepped back. The seam glittered under the lumen strips, dense, dark, full of the rare metals that Hold needed for the next generation of void shields.
Clear,
He called, with a voice sounding like gravel and dust.
Mark it and shore it. We take this one clean.
Hef moved up with the others. They worked without wasted words, settling the braces, checking the readings, feeding the hoppers. The older kin among them moved with the same unhurried certainty that Charon did. They had all seen tunnel collapses. They had all buried brothers underneath tons of rock and then gone back in the next cycle because the yield still needed taking. Charon watched the young ones for a moment. Their hands were still quick, still learning the weight of the tools. One day, those hands would be as scarred and reinforced as his. One day, they would stand where he stands now, cutting the next seam, while newer faces waited behind them. This was the point of it. The ore they pulled today would feed the forges. The forges would build the ships and guns for the next set of bracers. The ships would carry prospectors farther out, and the hold would continue to endure. The ancestors would be answered, not with song or monument, but with the simple fact that the word continued. Charon thumbed the cutter back into life. The beam lanced forward again, bright and true. He leaned into the cut, felt the good resistance of solid rock, and kept going. The Thurian League controls extensive territories in the galactic core called the Hold Worlds, and these are some of the most established worlds amongst all of the kin, such as the Crimson Gulf, which is a vast hold world of this specific league, locked in the central reaches of Thurian space. Its name comes from the blood-hued dust storms that swirl through the upper atmosphere, creating a permanent cover of scratching storms and lightning. Stained by the endless output of its forge spires and the irradiated mineral veins that laced its crust, the Crimson Gulf has throughout the ages become a major trade hub, as its own dwindling resources was invested in the establishment of trade routes and its orbital docks. The docks are now choked with void haulers, hurricane prospectors and mercenary fleets. The hold itself is a layered fortress of adamantine and void-shielded rock. Its outmost bastion seems to be nearly impenetrable, a claim that has become more and more tested since the ripping of the galaxy. Kin who call it home speak of the Gulf's defenses with quiet pride of overlapping fields of ion fire, automated gun batteries older than many imperial worlds, and deep core bunkers that can seal for centuries if ever the worst were to come. Another world is the Ovium Bulwark. It is situated in the western marches of Thurian space, and the Ovium Bulwark is a world of iron and defiance. Specifically, it sits against the Ultima Segmentum, and it squats over a major artery of trade and several rich mining epic centers. The whole world is scarred by strip mining, and this has created several kilometers of canyons into the planet's mantle, leaving what appears as giant claw marks on a continental scale. Massive curtain walls of reinforced, void-mined iron rings the primary hold, while orbital defense platforms and gravity mines makes approach a costly affair for anyone not guided in by the hold itself. The kin here are hard-eyed and cold-hearted even amongst other kin, and their hard-spake debates often ending with the same simple creed: what is taken must be held, and what is held must never be surrendered. The opposite gate is a hold world that sits at the northern part of the galactic core. It rises from a world of black glass and volcanic plains under the harsh light of the core's crowded stars. It is the seat of the Kindreds of Votann and the birthplace of Uthar the Destined, the famed Khal whose comings were marked by strange omens from all ancestor cores. The hold is both fortress and gateway, as its name derives from the great obsidian arches that once marked the original planetary landing sites of the first ancestors here. These arches have long since been reinforced into void gates and defensive bastions, seeing much traffic of vessels both for logistical purposes, but also those who find themselves here to try and to connect to the history of the kin. Lying in the southern reaches of the Thurian space lies the world of Grand Hall. This world is built for industry and endurance. 3 vital mining epicenters and their corresponding guilds find themselves having named this place inadvertently, as their activities had created vaulted halls of ferrocrete and void steel. These grand halls serve as both communal gathering places, habitats for the kin to rest and recover, as well as to plan where the void will take them next. Hard-spake debates here are over prices, yields, quotas, and expenditures, while not as extravagant as the defenses of the Crimson Gulf or as intimidating as the Bulwark, Grand Hall still features impressive void shields and famously ancient cutting lance batteries for excellent anti-void warfare. At the birth of the Great Rift, several hold worlds were swallowed outright by the event, destabilizing the stability of the greater Thurian League and threatening their territories and way of living. Yet their dimmed souls and pragmatic mindset have made it so that the kin sees warp storms as little more than a new type of extreme environment. And they have yet to realize the true gravitas of this galactical event. However, they have slowly realized that much has been lost. As the galaxy ripped, several ancestors core rebooted several subroutines and queries in the anticipation of demonic incursions, chaos raiders, and the many unforeseen predators of the ongoing warp storms. This has been given a singular name, the Ogvar, or the Ogress. Pan-spectral warning array blare out in alarm when chaos fleets are detected entering Votann space, and the greater Thurian leagues find themselves in a war against World Legions and the Purge, slowly chipping away at hold worlds, like waves upon a shore, each time taking a little bit with them. This multi-front war they called the Stormward Front, and this slowly increasing desperation has forced the Thurian League to look for extra resources in Imperial space to feed into their war machines. They try at first with trade and diplomacy, but the Imperium is also in great need of everything that they produce, leading to several new conflicts between lesser guilds and Imperial worlds, further fueling the desperation. Despite of all of this, the Thurian League stands as the exemplars of the Creed of the Votann and will continue to weather the storms against them. Luckily, they do not do this alone, as they can rely on the Kronos Hegemony. Regarded as young by the other leagues, meaning that they've only existed for a couple of millennia, the Kronos Hegemony are known for mechanized onslaughts and a habit of declaring actions taken against them and their interests as grudges to be upheld. Despite its age, the Hegemony is regarded as one of the major leagues amongst the kin, and it attracts members who are aggressive, hot-headed, and yearning for taking actions against the enemies of the kin as a species. They aim towards using their resources, diplomacy, and pedigree to create the structure for a superstate within the leagues, allowing them to become the de facto military of the kin. Their creation and rise to power is completely unique amongst anything that has ever happened within the Leagues of Votann, as their ancestor course does not originate from one of the ones that was originally built, but it came into being on its own. While they were known as the Kindred of Khorne, their Thane computers achieved full self-awareness and ascended into joining the quantum network used by all true Votann, meaning that this is a unique event as they saw the birth of an ancestor core. This newly birthed Votann was ravenous for knowledge and understanding, but also understood that it needed to preserve its own existence, meaning that it gathered the Kindred of Khorne and every other kin that would listen to it, driving them onward in an aggressive pursuit to gather resources for creating defenses, securement of territory, and reinforcing of its own casing. The former Kindred of Khorne was now named the Kronos Hegemony. The Hegemony has had an incredible growth spurt, as it took several hundred years before their core started slowing down like the others, meaning that they were able to expand rapidly and develop the idea that very little could not be solved by the appliance of a plasma axe. Its ranks constantly swell with young kin that find themselves drawn towards this bonfire of drive, and those born of this crucible are gifted soldiers, creating something akin to a truly functional army that never hesitates to stand between the kin and whatever the galaxy throws at them. Their culture is much more so than others, centered around pledges, oaths, and grudges, each of which has very specific rules and very specific requirements. Any member of the Kronos Hegemony knows all of this by heart, but they also know how to circumvent it whenever it's needed. Pledges are statements which a member or lesser guild of the Hegemony makes when they wish to declare their intention and vision for any sort of mission. It is used by the higher-ups to track the efficiency and drive of the individual members or guilds, and where an oath is much more serious. Oaths are specific tasks which the member or guild place upon themselves, and they are a serious matter, as these will be expected to be fulfilled no matter what. Meaning that those who are oath-bound to certain tasks cannot be persuaded to give up their goal, and should they fail in achieving their oaths, not only will great shame be put upon them, but they might be left isolated and alone by the entire rest of the Hegemony. This, however, is nothing compared to whenever something is declared as a grudge. A grudge can only be declared during a hard-spake debate, and this is when the Hegemony decides that a wrong has been done against them, either against specific members, the guilds, or even the Hegemony itself, or even in the worst case possible, the entire Leagues of Votann. A grudge becomes this league's wider mission, an oath which the entire Kronos Hegemony takes upon themselves as a collective and dedicates all available time and resources towards settling. A kin host of this caliber will sail forth and engage entire orc wars, chaos raiding fleets, or even topple entire imperial worlds that they view as having wronged them. And there are even cases where the hegemony has declared grudges against other guilds or even the other leagues. However, in these cases, diplomacy is tried before the plasma axe. Truly something rare. Despite this tendency towards having skirmishes and standoffs with other kin, the Kronos Hegemony has become a welcome sight by most within the Votann space, as since the galaxy got quite a makeover, one would always welcome any help from kin, especially when they show up heavily armed and ready for a fight. The Trans-Hyperion Alliance are the most nomadic and scattered amongst all of the leagues. Consisting of explorers, voyagers and merchants, they believe in venerating their ancestors through the original truth, to roam the stars and discovering everything that is hidden within. They are the league most famous for knowing every single light year of the major trade arteries of the Votann space, but also those space lanes forgotten or considered dangerous for lesser experienced starfarers. Every single kin of this league are peerless explorers, adventurers, and seekers of new things, and it almost seems like it's engraved within their very clone schemes to seek out trade partners, mysteries, knowledge, and new opportunities. Yet, despite them being the most sociable and diplomatic aligned amongst all of the leagues, a firm, unshakable core of culture lies at the heart of every single member. They could almost be considered puritanical amongst a lot of the leagues, as they have a hard and heated fervor towards the Votann and the ancestors, but it all lies within. Their fanes are always filled with small offerings to their ancestors, as they believe that in each and every transaction they must honor them and they must be venerated, leading to always a little piece of each transaction being stored here, creating true treasure troves and hordes of precious resources from all over the galaxy. I mean, just imagine a vast Votann hall just absolutely filled with gold, treasure and technology, all because that they believe that whenever they buy something or sell something, a little bit of it has to be shared with the ancestors. Even on the move and scattered when it comes to military might, the Trans-Hyperion Alliance have adapted themselves into fighting against the odds and often finding that they relish the challenge. They allow hard-won experience and know-how to win their battles rather than brute force and might. When they cannot win a conflict themselves, they have plenty of pedigree and goodwill with every other single league to call upon, as almost any successful guild are using charts, routes and experience won by the Hyperion Alliance, and that is not to talk about their forges. These are the few static elements of this specific league, and they're constantly producing swift and powerful voidcraft suited for long-range exploration and rapid responses, and these are often sold of great value to any other guild, kin, member or league who can afford it. The Alliance control vast but far-flung and thinly spread out territories, both within but also outside the galactic core, having found themselves even having a presence within the far side enclaves. Their members dwell within isolated pockets and maintain hold fleets that cruise the currents of the void, surrounded by smaller vessels for support and protection. As they travel, they bring discoveries, news, trade resources and travelers with them, meaning that any league welcomes them with open arms, both for the light and kinship that they bring, but also for the fact that they bring a lot of things that they can trade for sheer capital. They often find themselves in battle alongside the Kronos Hegemony, but have made quite a name for themselves with a few special engagements. One of these engagements are called the Rustfield Wars. This has taken place in a long-contested high-yield zone consisting of a vast asteroid belt rich in the rarest minerals that the kin prizes. For generations, the Trans-Hyperion Alliance have fought a grinding territorial war against orc clans that had infested the interior of the asteroid belt. Yet, despite of all of this, they have managed to make this a profitable endeavor, something which they take quite a lot of pride in. Then the Imperium's machine priest arrived in a coalition of forge worlds, spearheaded by Mars and Graia. They sent their mining fleets into the fields without any sort of recognition of the stakes already set down by the League, and they began strip mining the asteroids the moment that they arrived. To the kin and the Hyperion Alliance, this was seen as an interruption of a long-standing operation and as a personal insult to the ancestral claim that they had laid upon this place, and this led to a terrible skirmish that some say are still going on today. Another engagement is that which is called Hunting the Bane. The Great Devourer, known to the Imperium as the Tyranids and to the Leagues of the Votann as the Bane, has had quite a number of run-ins with the Trans-Hyperion Alliance, as the kin viewed the Tyranids more akin to a hazardous void terrain rather than a world-ending phenomena. And oh boy, are they gonna be surprised when they realize the scope of what the Tyranids actually are. Anyways, whenever a tendril of the Bane is shattered against a particularly hard-to-digest point of defense, it is splintered and often flowed towards high centers of gravity to hide and recover, as in fact Imperial vessels are not very well suited for long-range pursuits in order to actually destroy them. The Trans-Hyperion Alliance, however, are really good at this, and they have made a sort of an industry out of hunting stragglers from these shattered splinter fleets, effectively becoming void whalers and rendering down caught Tyranids into exotic resources. Oh boy, how the table have turned, Tyranids. And that is of course right up until the Great Devourer at some point will decide to squat the Leagues of Votann. Another league is called the Urani-Surtr Regulates, and they are defined by courage and endurance. Even to other kin, these kin are considered dour and stoic, placing an enormous weight on self-reliance and hardiness. But they have every right and need to do so, as they are beset by enemies on all sides. The Regulates have long held a swath of heavily contested territories along the southern reaches of the galactic core, bringing them into combat and war with truly terrible enemies such as the Necrons of the Samnok dynasty, who are intent on claiming their main hold worlds. They're also fighting against the war of Bog the Freebooter King, which has taken it upon himself to make the areas around the hold worlds into his personal raiding grounds, and consider that whenever an orc freebooter starts having success, they draw in even more orc freebooters. Furthermore, this specific league has gotten in the way of a crusading force of the Black Templars, and the Black Templars have decided that the kin, despite vaguely human-shaped, has decided that in the eyes of the Emperor they are disgusting filth, and we all know what the Black Templars does in such a case. And this is not the end of it. Within their space and territory, they are seeing Tyranid splinter fleets doing something that has never been seen before, a sort of strange behavior almost akin to making nests, which we will be looking forward to see what that's about. Such a tide of enemies would have made even other kindreds withdraw and realign their defensive lines, but not the Urani-Surtr Regulates. They, much more so than others, believe that the ancestors are always watching, and that they would dishonor and be abandoned by them if they were to give up even an inch of ground. They have, quite figuratively and in some cases literally, drawn a line in the sand chosen to plant their feet and take on anything and anyone trying to claim what they believe to be theirs. Some may believe that they do this based upon the veneration of their ancestors. Some believe that they do this out of stubbornness, but in secret there is a secondary reason for their grim determination, and that is that of the Somnath. At the heart of their territory lies a system containing an artificial world that has grown around an absolutely, truly incredible ancient kin vessel dating back to the age of myth. This vessel contains logs from the very first vessel sent forth on the Long March, and this might actually be the very earliest one. Within this vessel lies the Ancestors' Core, known as the Somnath. The Grimnir here fully believes that this Votann is the most ancient and advanced one that has ever been produced, and at the very least it is the most ancient and complex one that the Votann knows of. Yet it is completely uncommunicative and has remained so for the entire time that they have controlled this system. Many Grimnir speculate that this might be the data archive that lies at the nexus for the entire Votann quantum network, yet other Grimnir believes that the entire Somnath is currently handling a quarry so absolute and complex that it takes up the entire focus of the Votann. Yet they must admit that they truly do not know. The only thing that they do know is that they need to guard this venerable ancestor while it is deep in its contemplations, for one day it will awaken and it might have an answer that will change the entire galaxy. This dour stoicism and these constant conflicts, an almost religious veneration of self-reliance and stoicism, has made these kin inflexible yet determined in everything that they do. More so than other kin, they view waste as sacrilege and only expend resources when it is absolutely necessary, and I mean any type of resource, be it material, food, light, air or heat. Every kindred is expected to maintain as large as possible population, accepting a lifestyle that is close to minimal, and yet being expected to give their all should it ever come to it. Should anyone wish to join them, it is quite sparingly and very rare, and it only happens after rigorous tests and secretive meetings where oaths are sworn, pledges given and grudges accepted. The Ymyr Conglomerate is an ancient and elite power block, renowned even amongst the other leagues to be well and above all when it comes to material wealth and spectacular high quality technology. They view production and the very act of crafting as being their way of venerating the ancestors, and as such they would rather produce something to a strict quality standard rather than pumping out much more of a lesser weapon or a lesser technology. Entry into the conglomerate is elitist, selective, and is only allowed if a member or a guild can fulfill one of two criteria. 1. Proving beyond any doubt that they possess exceptional skill at crafting a specific type of technology or material. This is selected by something called a Brokier, essentially a master engineer that themselves have proven time and time again that they are a master of creating war gear, void ships, and the many other things that Leagues of Votann require. The other criteria is that a potential member can control territory that yields a spectacular bounty of raw materials to feed the forges. Many other cultures or races would view such a way of buying your way in to be sort of distasteful. However, the kin here, they view it quite differently. The Ymyr are pragmatic and ruthless, but they understand that while they prioritize quality above anything else, skill matters not if you have nothing to work with, and as such there is no stigma attached to buying your entryway here because it is needed. The conglomerate's Brokier ensures that its holds and fleets are filled with technological marvels to exacting standards, and all of the Hardkin warriors go into war equipped with the finest war gear, such as personal force field generators, teleporter beacons, and advanced scanning equipment, and much more that might make it onto a list someday. Their holds contain civilian facilities that would normally by the other conservative leagues be considered to border on decadence, as much resource is spent in expressing skill and grandeur in even the simplest construction. Yet none of the other leagues dare call them out for committing the sin of waste. The territories in which the conglomerate lays claims to lie within the very center of the galactic core and always in exceptionally rich areas of raw materials. However, many others would want to lay claims to these zones of treasure and riches, and as such they're often in competition with other kin, lesser sceners, or under threat by Orc and Chaos raiders who wish to put these resources to their own use. Yet, such a thing never dissuades them, and should an emissary come knocking at your door, you best consider their offer, as while they will pay handsomely for the resources that they need, they will just as easily take rich star system by force if need be, especially after the opening of the Great Rift. Before this galactic catastrophe, this league were frequent visitors to Tau space, trading technology in exchange for exotic materials of the highest caliber. But now, after the galaxy has been split in half, their former gleaming splendor is fading. Many of their holdworlds have been cut off, and thanks to their hyper-specialized nature, they are very rarely self-reliant. Their forges grows cold, and their gold is flaking from their works of wonder, often finding themselves now trading their exceptional wares for simple things such as grain and foodstuffs, rather than all of the exotic materials that they used to during their golden days. All of these leagues each represent what it is to be kin of the Votann, and all of them are slowly coming to realize that the galaxy has become something different than what they have always dreamt of. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!